I was working with World of Warcraft at the time. We created a team that was in charge of finding people or players who were abusing the game.
You've been running one of the highest stakes bug bounty programs for years now. What can you tell us about Ethereum's bug bounty program?
And with all the AI tooling, it's kind of interesting. You get these reports, which kind of might be legit. So you spend some time on them, and then it turns out that it's just AI mumbo jumbo.
What would you say is kind of your most contrarian, controversial opinion on the Web3 security space right now?
Instead of focusing on blacklists, I think that could probably be worth looking at a whitelist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Fredrik, great to have you on. I know we've been coordinating a decent amount recently, but this should be fun to kind of dig a little bit deeper into your background and kind of what you've been up to recently. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for hosting me, Jack.
Awesome. So Fredrik is the security research lead at the Ethereum Foundation, in charge of a bunch of really important areas of Ethereum security, including the bug bounty side, the $1 trillion security initiative, and other areas. So really looking forward to digging into some of those. But to start out, I would love to learn a little bit more about your background and how you got into computers, how you got into programming. Take us back to the early days and how you kind of started this journey to the Ethereum Foundation.
Yeah, sure. So I got my first computer when I was 12, I think. Had internet at the same time and basically started to explore what was available on the internet, which opened up a whole new world, basically. I come from a pretty small town, about 40,000 people. So being online was kind of eye-opening because you could speak with so many people across the world and you could really interact with them. You found people with a similar interest, and it was just pretty awesome because there was such a big amount of people who was interested in learning technology, learning how to do things, and that kind of got me into security as well because I found it interesting to see what you could do and what you could break in a way, and then kind of put it back together. So I started to kind of explore and to experiment with various things, such as like what can you do with software, what can you do with hardware, and that kind of led me then into working with security. I started like in school. I was studying economics, but it wasn't really my thing. So after school, I went to work in Paris for Blizzard Entertainment instead, and I was working with World of Warcraft at the time, and we created a team that was in charge of finding people or players who were abusing the game in various ways. So, for example, people were gold farming. People were getting other players to install malware on their computers, stealing their accounts, all their equipment, etc. And what we did was kind of similar to, I guess, what people are doing on chain now, where we were kind of analyzing the way people are interacting with the game, trying to figure out, is there something malicious going on as an early warning detection, and also handling incidents that occurred. Some people put so much time and effort into their World of Warcraft characters, so it could be thousands of hours, and then someone compromised them and stole all their items, equipment, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And it was a matter of trying to figure out where did it go to, how did they try to kind of wash the transactions, which is, I guess, similar as well, and try to kind of get it back. Yeah. looking back now that we're talking about it, is kind of similar. Like we had various groups as well. You have the Lazarus groups on like being very well known in the blockchain industry, but we had various groups as well in World of Warcraft that were targeting a lot of people that we were tracking, etc. So that kind of got me into working full time with security. And then a few years after that, I went back to where I lived, and I started to work for a company that was managing more society critical systems. So World of Warcraft is a game, but then I shifted into securing systems such as it could be transportation, it could be online payment providers, governmental agencies, central banks, and those kind of things. National healthcare systems is another example. So that was quite fun, and took obviously it was very critical that nothing went wrong. So there was quite a lot of pressure in that. Very interesting systems to work with, but they're also kind of slow moving, which could be an issue. So they're not like a central bank is not really super keen at installing and using bleeding edge technology most of the time, which I kind of missed. So after a while working there, I went to work, I saw a tweet by Justin Drake saying that the EF was looking for people to work on protocol security, and I had been involved in various ways, I guess, in Ethereum since 2017. So when I saw this in 2020, I felt that this was quite a big opportunity because I had this as my hobby since I guess 2017, kind of looking at Ethereum, other alts, layer ones, and other things in the ecosystem. But then having the opportunity to work with this full time was pretty, it just felt like something I couldn't turn down. So I ended up joining, and it's been super awesome ever since.
Awesome. And how deep were you, in Ethereum and in the technical aspects of it, I guess, before you joined?
So I wasn't really involved in let's say the protocol side of things. I was following all core devs a bit. It was kind of the, I guess, alt layer one period as well. Maybe that was more back in 2018 or something. So I was looking at them. To me, it felt a bit like being late to the party when I was there in 2017, 2018. I know I had heard about Bitcoin in 2014, I think. I thought, well, it's just too late, basically. And then I was kind of the same with Ethereum, now it's just too late. And then I was looking at some other alt layer ones, seeing how they kind of tried to improve scaling and such, which was a bit of an issue with Ethereum at the time. They had all these various ones that were popping up, like Binance Smart Chain and a bunch of other ones. And then, I guess I spent some time looking into it from a technical point of view, and then just joined.
Awesome. And what exactly were the kind of role responsibilities when you joined? Because security can mean so many things, and Ethereum was obviously much younger back then, so maybe there wasn't quite as wide of a surface area. What were kind of those initial aspects of security?
Yeah, so when I joined, we were a few people who joined at the same time. The idea was to build a team that was responsible for securing the consensus layer, because we were coming up to the merge, and there wasn't a lot of security work there had been security work, but maybe not in depth and with that being the primary focus of a team. Instead, it was client teams. It was a lot of people at the EF, such as Proto and Danny and others, who had been looking at at the consensus layer clients and found issues. On the execution layer side, we had people like Martin and others who had spent a lot of time securing and making sure that the execution layer clients were good to go. But yeah, the primary focus in the beginning was to look at the consensus layer clients to make sure that, we wouldn't end up with something catastrophic for the merge.
Got it. And what has that kind of turned into as you've, been at the EF for years now? It seems like you're in a very dynamic role. Is there a normal day, and kind of what would that normal day look like in terms of how you spend your time?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's very different each day, I would say. So for example, I have a few, let's say, primary responsibilities. One is the day-to-day helping to lead the team, making sure that everything works smoothly there. We are a very diverse set of people within the team. Like, we have people who are good with cryptography. We have people who are good with reviewing clients. We have people who are good at writing fuzzers, and we have people who are good at creating new tooling, which could be AI tooling or network tools that will test the network and try to break it in various ways. So there's a lot of coordination there to make sure that we're aligned with what we're doing, making sure that we keep up with the hard fork changes if there's one happening. We also have the bug bounty program, which is fairly time consuming. We get reports from time to time. The bug bounty program is quite wide. It's wider now than when I started. In the beginning, we were responsible for the consensus layer clients from a bug bounty point of view. Now we have the execution layer clients. We have Solidity. We have Viper. We have specifications. Oh yeah, we have the deposit contract as well. So it has expanded a bit, and it's probably going to expand further as well. So that also takes some time to review those. And I think with all the AI tooling, it's kind of interesting. You get these reports, which kind of might be legit. So you spend some time on them, and then it turns out that it's just AI mumbo jumbo. That's not really, turning out to be anything except for a time sink. So that's a bit of an issue these days.
Yeah. I think I really want to hear your thoughts on that, and to talk more about the bug bounty. But maybe first, would love to hear, I know you've been spending some time on the $1 trillion security initiative.
Yeah.
How would you describe that to people?
Yeah, so that's another thing that we're doing. So yeah, we do a lot of coordination work, and we coordinate between client teams, we coordinate between layer twos, we coordinate with other parts of the ecosystem from a security point of view. And something that we've heard from a lot of people, not just in these kind of coordination groups, but also from the ecosystem itself, is that most people have quite a lot of faith and trust in the protocol itself. It's had a 100% uptime since the start. There's been a few minor issues, but nothing major. And by issues, I mean that a client could have had a denial of service attack, or there could be another issue, but nothing that's people have had any big concerns about. So when in discussions, it's turned out that this isn't really what people are worried about when it comes to the security. So we started to look at, okay, obviously it's critical that the protocol is secure, because without that, it means that everything that depends on the protocol is also insecure. So that is our number one priority, to make sure that that continues to be like that. But we should also be looking at the things that are impacting people on a day-to-day basis. So that's why we started with this 1TS, or 1 trillion security initiative, where we wanted to understand what issues are everyday users and institutions facing today with regards to security on Ethereum. And when I say on Ethereum, it's likely to be actually on any blockchain. I don't think this is specific to Ethereum at all, but we are the ones kind of looking into it now. It turns out that the thing that people are having issues with isn't the protocol as we expected, but the issues are more on the user layer, such as wallets or UX, where people end up going to websites, believing they're going to get an airdrop by clicking on something and then having all their funds taken. Or it could be that a DApp ends up being hacked and all the users are losing their money. What we've done is kind of try to figure out, okay, we understand now that there are a lot of issues, and now we're gonna have to figure out how do we actually solve them.
Got it. Yeah, I think I was reading the report, and you guys kind of optimized for two big goals. One was, I think, a billion people could hold more than $1,000 on Ethereum, and the other was, I think, related to institutions, like being able to hold $1 trillion maybe in a single smart contract.
Yeah.
Why did you choose those two goals?
I mean, the actual $1 trillion versus, let's say, 900 million or 1.5 trillion. I don't think that there's anything specific scientific behind that, to be honest. It's just a good meme in a sense. But the idea is that, as an institution or a country or anything else, you should feel confident enough to put $1 trillion into a contract that you could have developed yourself on Ethereum. If we can achieve that, where people feel as confident as doing that compared to, I don't know, having $1 trillion in gold bars in their, national safe or whatever, I think that will prove the security of Ethereum. So I think that's an important thing. The other part is about getting, like you said, 1 billion people who has $1,000 each. I realize that $1,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people. So it's not about the exact number. It's more about getting, making sure or getting Ethereum to the point where it's the underlying infrastructure of society today, where people, instead of putting all their funds into a centralized bank account, they should feel as confident to put it on chain and not have to worry that they're gonna lose all their money tomorrow due to clicking the wrong link, basically. And to do that, I think that's kind of what 1PS is about, like figuring out, okay, how can we get 1 billion people to actually to trust and to have faith and trust in Ethereum, so that they start using it. And there are a few things I think that are key there. One is to make sure that Ethereum is easy to use for the majority of people. Like if you have an elderly parent or grandmother or grandfather or whatever that's not really technically, like not used to using technology, computers or phones, etc., it's going to be a tough thing to get them to install web wallets and so on. So that's one of the things that we have heard quite a lot during these 1PS discussions, that there has to be an easier way for people who are not as technical as the current early users of Ethereum are, so that we can reach global adaptation. And there are multiple ways of doing that, I guess. But the best way would be, in my opinion, would be if we can go there without having to rely on something being super centralized.
Without having to have something be super centralized. Makes sense. Between those two initiatives, so 1 billion people with $1,000 on chain, or one smart contract holding $1 trillion, which one do you think we're closer to? Like, which one do you feel more comfortable with, and which one are you like, oh man, we have work to do?
Well, personally, I believe the 1 trillion and one account or smart contract is probably easier to solve in a sense, because to reach 1 billion users with $1,000, you really need to have such big momentum. You need to have some kind of big kind of killer use case where everyone just starts using it for various things. And getting that traction is obviously gonna take some effort. But I mean, yeah, to get someone to put $1 trillion, I mean, the amount is obviously extremely high, but as long as one is convinced enough that this is something that they believe in, that they can trust, then yeah, I believe it's probably easier to do that part.
Yeah. We've already got, what is it, 60 billion at the moment in Aave. So just keep scaling that up, and you're almost there. Okay. So the other thing in the kind of $1 trillion security initiative report that you co-authored talks about 6 areas, like 6 main areas of focus or main areas of security. I think one of them's UX, one of them's smart contracts, one of them's related to governance. Which one do you see as the one in need of most help or attention?
I think UX, without a doubt in my mind. This is the Achilles heel right now. The vast majority of people in this ecosystem are like incredibly great at building technology and building these awesome applications and tools, but technical people, like the developers, etc., are not always the best UX people. And I think that's something that we need to improve on quite a bit. I think we need to come to a stage where we have something I say quite frequently is like it feels today as if we're at a level of Arch Linux from a usability point of view. Like you can do anything, you can install what you want, you can use what you want, but there aren't really any guardrails, which is good and bad, obviously. But if you look at it from a world point of view, I don't believe that's what the vast amount of people in the world is looking for. They're probably looking for something such as, an iOS experience. They want something polished. They want something that might not have as many. They can't make as many changes or go off the rails, but they feel like they can trust the system that they're using. And I think that's something that we need to get to in terms of UX. We need to get to, we need to continue having this kind of Arch Linux system, but we also need to have an alternative, which is, an iOS version of blockchain, basically.
Right. And I mean, that's from your position on the security side of Ethereum and seeing, okay, UX is probably the biggest thing that's holding us back. I mean, how do you even go about improving that? Do you need to go raid Apple's campus and find all the best UX designers?
Yeah, I think that's so. In my view, this isn't something that the EF should probably should try to solve on its own. I think this is something that, like I mentioned in the beginning, I think one of the key positive things that the EF can do is work as a coordinator and facilitator. And I think we can hopefully get the right people communicating and collaborating so that we can kind of improve where we're at now. Yeah, because I don't think this is something that the EF should own. This is something that the ecosystem should own. But, we can help facilitate and coordinate and make it easier for it to actually happen.
Got it. And what do you see as kind of in that coordination, and I guess in terms of the $1 trillion security initiative as a whole, what do you see as sort of the next steps? Like you've put out this sort of research report or almost like a primer. I know Sherlock and others have been working on some vulnerability data areas, but what do you see as kind of the next steps?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's going to be a report, a follow-up report coming up very soon, actually. I don't know exactly when this podcast is going to be live, but it should be out fairly soon. And this will go more into details about what we're doing, like what we're focusing on right now, how we're doing it. It's the UX part that will be mentioned or be described in this post, and also the second part, which is the smart contract security, which is what you just mentioned, basically, that you guys are helping out in.
Awesome. And what do you see as, let's say, some smart contract developer or maybe an auditor is listening to this podcast and wants to get involved in the $1 trillion security initiative? Is there a way for them to do that? Where would you have them go?
So right now, one of the ideas that we have is to create this public repository of known vulnerabilities in smart contracts. And the idea is that, by having a large scale public database of this, which might, it doesn't really matter in my view, who runs this platform or who adds data to it. But the important thing is that it should be a credible, neutral platform that people feel good about using and people feel good about submitting reports to it. And the idea then is that, by having this big database of, let's say, 100K or more known vulnerabilities that's existed in smart contracts previously, the idea is then that, you would be able to use this to create a lot of valuable tooling, which could be tools, for example, to analyze smart contracts in, could be tools such as Foundry or Hardhat before it's actually deployed on chain, so that, if a piece of code matches something that's already been found in a previous contract hack, for example, then you can get a warning that you should not be deploying this contract. It could also be various AI tooling, I'm guessing, that could be used to train on this data, to ensure that if you're using AI to create smart contracts, it doesn't create smart contracts with these kind of vulnerabilities in them, or the other way around, where you're using the AI tooling to figure out if a contract is vulnerable to something, so that you as a white hat can then report it to the project before someone actually exploits it. We would be super happy, like, if anyone has interest in contributing vulnerable contract code into this database, then they can reach out to $1 trillion security at ethereum.org.
Awesome. Great. Well, yeah, really excited to see where that goes. Obviously, Sherlock is supporting it as much as we can, and definitely want to help make the ecosystem as a whole as secure as possible, because that's just good for everyone. Speaking of making the ecosystem as a whole secure, we have Fusaka coming up. That's kind of the next big upgrade of Ethereum. Would love to talk with you about the before, the during, the after of a big upgrade like this. So I know roughly a month or so before, you're going to be kicking off an audit competition, $2 million audit competition on Sherlock. What do you see as the value of an audit competition like that, as opposed to a normal, traditional audit, you could say?
Yeah, to put things into context, I guess. So we have we have a protocol security team at the EF, and we do a lot of things with regards to the protocol. We create the fuzzers, we do manual auditing on code and specifications, but we are a limited amount of people, which means that we have a limited amount of time. These upgrades are so complex that it's very easy to miss something. We sometimes use auditing firms for specific things. if we have, let's say, a system contract or a specific piece of code, like a smaller code base that needs to be reviewed, we might use a auditing firm because they can really dig into that specific part for like 2 weeks or something. The issue is kind of when you look at like the protocol, it's kind of hard to fully grasp everything that goes into a hard fork in, let's say, 2 weeks. It might take 1 week to fully understand it. And on top of that, we have, I guess, is it 10 clients, 11 clients now that each has to be reviewed and how they have implemented each specific EIP. And each of these clients are written in different languages. So you have some written in Go, Rust, Java, .NET, NIM, TypeScript, etc. So it's quite hard. I don't know. I would maybe even say impossible to do this in 2 weeks, from like zero to fully having audited all the EIPs in all the clients in, let's say, 2 weeks or something like that. So instead, for these kind of things, like the big hard forks, we felt that having an audit competition it just gives more bang for the buck, so to speak. We get so many, like, we're able to crowdsource such a large amount of people who each have different skill sets. Like some might be super good at Java, some might be super good at Go, someone might be focusing on cryptography, someone might be focusing on the peer-to-peer layer, etc. So by crowdsourcing all these hundreds of people who are reviewing it, we're able to get such a wider set of eyes on the code that it makes us feel more confident in the release itself being sound and secure.
Yeah, makes sense. What do you see as, you run a $2 million competition, it runs for a month. What does a successful outcome look like after that?
So obviously, if there are any security issues, they would be found. That would be it. And then after the competition is complete and we do the hard fork, there aren't any new issues found after that. The other thing that is actually super useful, and we've had this happening after some of the competitions, is that people who participated in the competitions, they are then continuing to participate in the regular bug bounty program that we're having. So that is another reason why we kind of had the idea of running a competition originally, which was that it's quite a fairly big step to understand how the Ethereum protocol works, and like compared to doing smart contract audits, for example. So by doing the competition, we can then get more people interested in protocol security and having an understanding of how the peer-to-peer layer work, or consensus, or the EVM, or other things. And they can then afterwards continue to participate in the regular bug bounty program.
Got it. Yeah, no, it seems like a great funnel. And for some of these security competitions in the past, we've had different sponsors like Arbitrum and Base and different teams. Why is it useful or important for the EF to have sponsors in these competitions?
Like from a monetary point of view, it's something that is obviously very helpful. The EF being a nonprofit and all that. But I think one of the key things for me is that, long term, in my view anyway, Ethereum should not be depending as much on the EF as it might be doing today. I think that, as Ethereum grows up from being wherever it is now into becoming an adult or whatever, I think that we need to have an ecosystem that it doesn't have a single point of failure. We need to have an ecosystem which has a bunch of different entities in the ecosystem collaborating for the, good and progress of Ethereum. And to do that, we need to have people who are willing to step up and to provide support to ensure that Ethereum continues to stay decentralized. So by contributing to a competition such as this one, no matter if it's a big or small contribution, the key thing for me is that you're helping to move Ethereum forward, and you're helping to ensure that the protocol itself is secure, which is something that everyone in the ecosystem benefits from. No matter if you're an L2 or a DeFi project or anything else, it's beyond important that layer one security stays top of the line, because otherwise your own protocol or layer two might face issues as well. So yeah, the more collaboration we can get, not only on like the bug bounty thing, but also the 1TS and other things, the better for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, got it. And I think that's really cool that, again, the point is to remove a single point of failure. Like, you could see the EF as a single point of failure in some aspects of Ethereum. How do you get around, these teams that maybe are less inclined to participate or don't see the direct value in it? What do you see as some of the benefits that you would tell to those teams that are kind of on the fence about, well, do we want to get involved here? What's in it for us, kind of thing?
Yes. Again, to me, the most important thing is to make sure that we as an ecosystem continue to move more and more towards a decentralized future where we don't have this kind of one entity that is in a way handling some parts of the security of the ecosystem. I think this is something that we should have as decentralized as possible. Like one idea, just to put an example, has been to at some point in the future have it so that the bug bounty program is co-sponsored by various parts of the ecosystem, because the value and importance of Ethereum layer one not having a vulnerability is something that is important to every single entity in the ecosystem. And because of that, it would obviously be good if more projects and entities took a responsibility in helping to ensure that this continues being as secure as it is today.
Got it. Makes sense. And on the other side of the coin, the maybe individual researchers who might want to participate in a competition or even later in the bug bounty program, what advice would you have after seeing tons of hard forks and a few competitions and people participating in the bug bounty? What advice would you have for a researcher who wants to potentially jump in?
I think the main thing is that you should find an area of interest and then kind of start digging into that. I think if you go too wide, you're probably not going to find. You're less likely, in my experience, to find anything. If you figure out like, well, this particular EIP looks very interesting, then spending time on that specific EIP and going through client by client to figure out like how has this been implemented, then to me that's been quite successful, because even though you might not know a language, maybe you don't really know NIM or .NET as much as you know Go and Rust, it's still valuable to do it. I mean, you will probably understand how it works, and you can get the more code you look at, the more you can understand this is what it's supposed to look like. And then you might see something that seems a bit odd, and you start digging into that in that specific application that you're looking at. And that ends up being a misconfiguration or a misunderstanding by the client team who implemented it. So that's, I would say that is one of the best things to do, most likely. I guess the whole thing is, it's a bit of a game in the sense where, you're gonna have to understand, like, the way we measure impact on this upgrade is based on impact on Ethereum as a whole, which means that, a vulnerability in a majority client is going to have a higher impact compared to a minority client. But I guess then, on the other hand, you might be thinking, well, okay, then that means that I should be looking at the code base of the majority clients only. But it could be that everyone else is thinking the same, and it could be that, those clients are very hardened, while, if you look at the smaller ones, maybe you don't end up with as high of an impact for each vulnerability found, but maybe you find more vulnerabilities that make up for that. So I think you're gonna have to think about, like, the game of it all as well. Like, what are you gonna be looking at, and what are other people gonna be looking at? That's probably also worth considering.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. It sounds like if you're a new researcher, you might recommend they look at some of those smaller clients, or smaller, less important to the network clients.
Yeah, it could be that they haven't had as many eyes on them, for example. So it might be, you might end up with more vulnerabilities found in those potentially. But they might not have as high impact, but you might find more.
Yeah, makes sense. Well,
on the other hand, like, if you look at one of the major ones in final vulnerability, it could be that 10 others found the same vulnerability because they also look at the majority client, for example, while no one else looked at the minority client. So it's an interesting game.
True. It is an interesting game, and you have to look at the deduplication or the duplication kind of penalties if 10 other people have found it. Super interesting. Okay, so moving on, we do this $2 million audit competition before Fusaka or before another hard fork. And then there's the actual kind of deployment, I guess you could say, of the hard fork. I mean, especially with the merge, these deployments are some of the most critical software upgrades ever in history, you could say, like equivalent to rocket launches. What can you tell us about some of the behind the scenes of these upgrades, or what might happen in the Fusaka upgrade?
Before Pectra, we kind of had game plans, but they weren't really, I would say, written down as procedures. With Holeshki, there was an incident with one of the testnets, Holeshki, which caused some concerns. This was actually caused by it was a configuration issue. It wasn't like the code itself, but it was an issue that multiple clients had made when they created a configuration file that was then being read by the client. Obviously this would have been in scope as well of the competition, but this wasn't found. This kind of showed that we need to have more of a procedure on what to do. So now we have this kind of big procedure that explains all the steps with regards to a competition, a hard fork, which starts off from a security point of view. Client security researchers being assigned to different EIPs to look at, and then looking at those, then we have the competition, and then the hard fork itself happens. And during that time, we have close monitoring of the hard fork. All the validators in the ecosystem, they upgrade their clients, and then we wait until the hard fork. And during that time, we have the testing team, we have the client teams, we have the security team, and PandaOps, obviously, who also look at how everything is going. And we have people assigned to different roles during the hard fork. So it's more, I would say, polished in a sense now with regards to procedures and so on. So if something goes wrong, there is someone dedicated to dealing with that specific issue. Everyone knows who these people are. It's different for each hard fork, and then we deal with it. There is after the hard fork goes through, there's also a bunch of testing that happens, and obviously before the actual hard fork on mainnet, we do a lot of upgrades on testnets as well. So yeah, there's a big procedure regarding this right now. That's actually the procedure for those interested is available in the PM repository on Ethereum GitHub.
Got it. Awesome. And, are there kind of rituals that you guys have put in place? Do some people fly to the same location for these hard forks? Like, is everyone getting up at a certain hour? Yeah. What's it like?
Well, usually we're not in the same location when it happens. Obviously, people are up based on their role, who is assigned to what. Usually what happens is that before an upgrade, there is something called an interop, which is where the client teams and the researchers and others are meeting up to work on a hard fork. And this is an in-person event, just to make sure that everyone has interoperability between each other with regards to the clients, etc. But then for the actual hard fork, this is usually done, just across the globe, basically.
Got it. And how does that period change for you in terms of a normal work week versus, a week when that kind of upgrade is happening? Are you sleeping okay at night? Is it like significantly more stressful or what's it like?
I would say it depends. I think for Pectra, I would say before the Holeshki incident that happened on the testnet there, I was a bit concerned, to be honest, because it had been moving quite quickly. But after that incident, we kind of slowed down. By the end, when the Pectra competition happened, I felt quite confident. I felt confident at the time when the Pectra upgrade happened, and I think that's kind of how it is with a lot of things, I guess. Like I used to be a pen tester in Web 2 at a time, and I had these assignments to find flaws in web applications. I had 2 weeks to find various things. It might go like 1 week, nothing found. A week and a half, nothing found, and then you have like 2 days to go or 1 day to go, and that's when you find a critical thing, which is like leading up to that. It doesn't feel really good, but then like at the time when you're delivering your report and everything is good. I think having that confidence is important, and I think for the hard forks that I've been dealing with, that's always been the case. To be honest, I wasn't concerned about the merge going wrong or anything like that, because there's been so much testing. Like there are so many dev nets, test nets that go through the process, and so many people looking at this that at the end of it, you've gone through all this process. You've had all these people testing, looking at it, so it's not as big of a concern.
Yeah. Okay. And then as you get past the upgrade and everything, this is the new mainnet Ethereum, the potential vulnerabilities, I guess, move to the bug bounty program.
Yeah.
And you've been running one of the highest stakes bug bounty programs for years now. And I believe you're in charge of it as well. What can you tell us about Ethereum's bug bounty program?
Yeah, it's the oldest one in the blockchain ecosystem. It's been there since 2015, maybe. Yeah, I think 2015 is when it started, if I recall correctly. We get a lot of reports regarding different things, a lot of spam, a lot of false positives, and a lot of things that are out of scope of the bug bounty program. We try to be very explicit about what it's about. Like, we care about the protocol itself. We don't care about a cross-site scripting issue on a web page, for example, or misconfigured email security headers or whatever. It's about the protocol. We get a few valid ones from time to time, which are super, super valuable. But like I said, it's hard for an outsider who doesn't have the experience, I guess, working with something like Ethereum to kind of, I guess, wrap their head around things. The ROI might not be there because you see that, okay, there's this big bounty, but I'm going to have to spend 2 months understanding how this works. And maybe I don't find anything at all. So it's quite a big step to do it, but that's why I'm glad that we have these competitions on platforms such as Sherlock, because then we can get people to understand the protocol and to get them up to speed and help contribute by reporting stuff afterwards on the bug bounty program as well.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned AI a little bit and the potential that there could be more submissions happening in the bug bounty program. How do you see the future there? Are you seeing more submissions already that are kind of LLM generated? And are you worried that this is going to just spiral out of control?
Yeah, we definitely see more that are AI generated. They, I think, become easier and easier to spot. They tend to be written in a way that just feels a bit off. And when, like, it could be multiple pages of things, but then when you read it, you can see this just doesn't make any sense. And then when you reply to them and say, like, well, you're going to have to provide a proof of concept if this is accurate, then you get another reply, which is not a proof of concept, but it's like something more strange as a reply, which is, yeah. And at that point, you can kind of know that, well, this isn't actually an issue. This is just something that was dreamt up by or hallucinated by an AI. But it is time consuming, and we act as a, I guess, first incident triage for the client team, so they don't have to see all of this. But obviously we don't want the client teams to spend time on something that's just not accurate when they could be spending time improving their client and working on the next hard fork or other things. So that's, but yeah, like I said, we have limited amount of hours, so we can't be spending too much time looking at these false positives either. But I guess I don't exactly know what the best solution is for this to kind of get rid of these. I know I've seen some suggestions being that you should put in some amount of ETH in order to make a report. And if the report is not factually correct, then, you burn that ETH. But if it is correct, then you get that ETH back, and you also get the bug bounty. But that could also mean that people they might not be completely sure about something, so they might not report it. So there's a bit, I think, there's still research that should be done, I think, on how to kind of mitigate these AI stuff. I've seen a lot of other people having these kind of reports, like the team behind Curl, for example. They seem to get quite a few of these issues.
Got it. Yeah, it's definitely something we're seeing across the space. And I think Sherlock is the only bug bounty platform that requires a deposit right now. So maybe we'll get some interesting data between different platforms at some point on how it affects things. It is very effective at stopping spam.
Yeah,
I'll say that much. But it probably has, it definitely has some other downsides, like you said, of people who aren't that sure but can still provide something valuable, potentially not submitting.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's an area worth exploring. I think that this is gonna increase over time. And Daniel, who is the founder of Curl, I believe he mentioned that it was like being DDoSed in a way, because they get all these reports and they look into it, but it's just a waste of time basically. And when you do get something, it's like immensely valuable, but it would be good to be able to get rid of the all these non-actually issues.
Yeah. I know we're running up on time here. I'd love to try to sneak in 2 more questions.
Yep.
One, which I always find interesting. What would you say is kind of your most contrarian, controversial opinion on the Web3 security space right now?
Like from a wallet point of view, I know a lot of efforts are going on with regards to creating like good blacklists and so forth, which is good. I think that this is something that, like, having an up-to-date blacklist is obviously good, but the negative thing is that it's always playing catch up to these people deploying these scam websites, etc. And it's so easy to do it, to deploy any website. They probably automate the whole process. Instead of focusing on the blacklists, I think that it could probably be worth looking at a whitelist as an alternative, which I know many people would probably feel this is insane. Why would we want to have a whitelist? I want to be able to do whatever I want, which is fine. Like I said before, I think, there is space and need for something like Arch Linux in our ecosystem. But I would believe that a lot of people are probably looking for something where they know they can trust what they're like. If they're interacting with something, they know this has been vetted, this has been kind of approved, this is something that I can trust because, I trust the entity that has whitelisted this. I think that would be very beneficial. I also, perhaps another thing could be, quite a lot of effort has been put into these short-term solutions to the problems that we're seeing today, which is, again, like blacklists and so on. It feels quite reactive in a lot of ways. What we need to do as a kind of a next step is to be more proactive and try to make sure that, these scams and whatnot cannot happen at all. And that might be things such as, implementing security on the protocol layer instead of, implementing it in each wallet, for example. So that's something that I'm researching a bit right now on how to kind of try to solve this on a deeper level instead of having to rely on a bunch of various implementations, which might not go anywhere because it's just research. But I do think that we should kind of take a step back and kind of rethink and be thinking about what issues are we seeing today? How have we tried to solve them? Has it worked? How much has it helped? And should we just try to come up with a complete new solution to the problem instead?
Yeah. Some really, really tough topics there. Protocol level versus not, whitelist versus blacklist. That one would definitely be considered controversial.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
I guess maybe in the last 30 seconds here, last question, what future EIP, whether in Fusaka or not, are you most excited about?
For Fusaka, the easy answer would be PeerDAS, which is great because it enables more data availability on mainnet. And that is something that can then scale Ethereum, because that means that more layer 2s can use DA. So that is hopefully going to unlock quite a lot of more usage on Ethereum compared to today. So I'm quite hyped to see, how will this enable L2s to do more in terms of transactions and storing data and so on. But then we also have another one, which is a much smaller one. It's called 7892, which is a blob parameter only hard fork, which is probably not as commonly known as PeerDAS. But what this does is that it enables the network to upgrade or set certain configurations on the network without a proper hard fork. So by doing a blob parameter only hard fork, you can then just do a hard fork that contains a single configuration change, which allows for more throughput for L2s, for example. And this means that, instead of waiting, if we have the next hard fork in 6 months, you don't really have to wait 6 months before we can increase the throughput of blobs on the network, which allows for more data throughput for layer 2s. Instead, you can say, okay, we're going to double the throughput next month. So that means that we can move much faster in terms of providing more throughput for the layer 2s. So for me, that's quite exciting, because if it takes a year for a change to go through, which is just like a small configuration change, that can be it's not super nice, I would imagine, for layer 2 that wants to double their throughput to wait that long. So instead, we can then move much faster and be more agile with that, which I think will unlock quite a few big things for Ethereum.
Awesome. I like that. That's kind of a sleeper, but it does sound very important. Well, thanks so much for taking the time today, Fredrik. Great chatting with you, and looking forward to everything that's coming up in terms of Fusaka, in terms of the $1 trillion security initiative. And thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jack. Always a pleasure to speak with you. And looking forward to the competition, and super excited to see all the people joining and what they will find.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Fredrik.
Thank you very much. Take care.